Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action, and today we're here with a replay from the King's Cup tournament this past weekend. Shetland Apache hosted another King's Cup, and unfortunately I was away and did not get to stream, but asked for some replays, and so here are a few. This time we've got Hot Ice Cube with Bretonnia up against Arcan the Black's Vampire Counts, of course. But I just want to take a minute to appreciate this beautiful, beautiful Bretonnian massive lance formation. All these different cav units, of course, in lance formation, all in a giant wedge. It makes me very, very happy. As for the rest, we've got a whole bunch of mobs protecting a couple of bowmen, a Grail Relic, and a Damsel up in the air, Albric, and a Paladin. For the foul vampire counts, we've got a Neckarch. Looks like a Vampire Lore of Shadows hero, along with two Terrorgeists, so a very heavy air force. Relatively thin line of Graveguard, Skeleton Warriors, Skeleton Spears. We've got some Ghouls as well to help kill peasants. Looks like a Mortis Engine and some Fell Bats. So yeah, Albric and the Paladin will get outclassed, obviously, just by models here, by this air force. But Hot Ice Cube now just going to be charging in to summon zombies to block one charge, but these Knights Errant don't mind charging in and just immediately lancing down these foul infantry here. Foul undead, and the lance charges will intensify as all across the line here they're going to get their bracing bonus broken from one side and then immediately, charge in from the other side. And you can see already quite a bit of damage being done on a few of these light units here, so pretty good stuff. Bit of a breath attack goes down, doesn't make the best contact, and it was also on just Knights Errant, which is the most, or the least expensive of the variants of Bretonnian Knights, so a little bit of a wasted resource there perhaps, but still, Albric well on his way to being chased around, and as is the Paladin, just sort of avoiding at this point, but Albric does have one trick up his sleeve, of course, which is that incredible wave effect that he has now, which is actually useful in terms of both its damage and leadership effect. You can see here just massive charges, and where Albric manages to catch the Neckarch without support, he can then turn around and start to do a lot of damage here. Spirit Leech from the Neckarch, and the support now moving in, Fell Bats, and the Vampirus moving in. You can see the Bretonnian Cav get a little bit of a Shield of Thorns, pull up and away there, but here comes the wave right down the line of Vampires. And how about that reverse Wind of Death? Just absolutely blowing apart that line, doing a ton of damage to all these various units, and then an immediate charge from quite a few of those Lance Formation Cav. They start to absolutely ride down some of those infantry there, so beautiful stuff. You can see immediately the Terrorgeists drop down to start to do damage to those units of Cav, realizing that this ground fight is very much turning against them. That being said, supporting fire gets rid of the bats, clears up Albric to again start taking some swings at the Neckarch there. It looks like a nice little Earthblood, extended duration there, hits those Knights of the Realm, and Albric, the Paladin, is dueling with the Vampirus Lore of Shadows. Honestly, the Vampirus, because of her stats, is pretty decent here, and where the Bats and the two Vampire heroes can sort of team up on the Paladin, you can see that he does get taken out pretty aggressively here. So a rough situation for the Paladin, but meanwhile on the ground, the Vampire force is starting to crumble. You can see their infantry units just not holding up well. Obviously, the Mortis Engine helping to sustain a little bit here. Albric takes a risky dive to do a bit of damage to one of those Terrorgeists, but the Terrorgeists are definitely going to be tough nuts to crack. Of course, he does give extra anti-large to all of these units in that area of effect, so will help out, especially for the peasant mobs, of course, fighting against that Terrorgeist. But yeah, the Terrorgeist actually takes a little bit of damage there. Nice Earthblood as well, catches mostly high-value targets. In fact, did not hit the peasant mobs, so very grateful for that. But yeah, at this point, the Vampire player realizes the danger of this Damsel here and is going to drop down to try and goon here. A nice Shield of Thorns, though. Or at least I thought that was a Shield of Thorns, maybe? Let's see here. Nope, I just see Lance Formation. Interesting. But it does look like Invocation of the Heck did go off for the Vampire side. And the Mortis Engine, again, the main reason that all these troops are still fighting is primarily because of the Mortis Engine, but the healing cap space is mostly gone, and just multiple charges from different directions are going to crumble away these light units very quickly. I mean, they are still just barely holding on here, but we'll see. Albric continuing to go on a wild goose chase here as the two vampire heroes are chasing him, but he drops down. That is going to pull the two vampire heroes down, and now that they're kind of stuck in this blob, obviously because they're on Pegasus-sized mounts, they don't really have the mass to push out of this when they're surrounded by Bretonnian horsemen here, so they're going to be somewhat pinned in now on the ground. You can see the Neckarch fighting his way, trying to get out, and the Mortis engine can maybe actually sort of body block a little bit here, as can the Terrorgeist, but the Terrorgeist pulling back up into the air. Now Albric drops down to potentially try and finish off that Neckarch there, doing some good damage, but likewise Albric taking a bit. Another wave comes through to finish off the remaining vampire infantry. Should pretty much crumble the last of them away. Yeah, they're just about done for here, so at this point, we'll see the balance power actually turning slightly against Bretonnia as Albric does start to take a bit of a hit here. The Damsel also taking a pretty severe hit, and the Knights are sort of starting to run out of steam a little bit here. A handful of Knights of the Realm relatively healthy. Quite a few mobs still fighting as well, which of course, because of the Grail Relic, they will not get terrified by that Mortis engine, but we'll see. So far, it's definitely pretty close. Not looking great for Bretonnia as Albric does start to take quite a bit of damage, but the Damsel manages to escape here. She is going to catch a Spirit Leech, but Albric manages to get a hold of the Neckarch here, and this could potentially get Bretonnia back in the game. The Neckarch now surrounded by these Knights of various types, all getting extra anti-large from Albric, and Albric himself taking some decisive swings there, getting in some massive hits on the Neckarch Lord, pretty much able to just about finish him off here. He's down to 800 HP, regenerating a little bit, but those were some very, very good hits. That being said, Albric's got to be careful now as the big vampire heroes start to drop down along with the Terrorgeist. But yeah, that Neckarch is even crumbling in terms of his leadership at this point, so we'll see. It looks like a Terrorgeist breath directly down on top of Albric's face. That is very painful. But Albric using his mass to push through and get on top of the Neckarch, and again, because of the mount choice here for the Neckarch only being on a Pegasus-sized mount, he's not able to get back up in the air, and these Bretonnian Cav just continuously, you know, keeping him pinned on the ground until he's pretty much picked off here. You can see he's down to about 500 HP. At this point, Archon the Black is going to, I guess, take it? I'm not really sure. Did the Bretonnians end up routing there? Very interesting, but yeah, quite a interesting game, I have to say. Albric able to get about 207 kills there. I honestly think that maybe if he would have traded these Knights of the Realm out for just Pegasus Knights, like not Royal Pegasus Knights, but just the little bit cheaper version, maybe you could potentially take a fight up in the air like this with Albric a little bit more effectively. It's definitely an interesting one, but in this situation, I do sort of see what the vampires were going for here. Unfortunately, I think that just the Mortis engine was a little bit too much of a sustained kind of damage there. Ended up doing a lot of damage to the Knights, who sort of stayed blobbed in a little bit there. You know, it's definitely a tough situation, but yeah, a very fun replay from Hot Ice Cube there. I love that massive lance formation, and the kill totals are definitely impressive. Again, I just think that maybe, you know, you obviously couldn't do that massive epic lance formation, but I just think that, again, trading some of these Knights of the Realm out for some Pegasus Knights just to be able to really control this aerial engagement, I think would have been a little bit better. It's tough to say. It could be a bit risky as well. I just, you know, theory crafting that Albric and the Pegasus Knights and the Paladin would be able to beat this flying squad, but maybe the Terrorgeist would be too much for them. I guess I would need to do some testing and really see for myself, but yeah. I've got two Beastmen games to show you guys, so yes indeed, Beastmen in a tournament. I know some of you guys have been saying they're a little weak, but let's see how they do. Alright, and we're back with Game 2 here from this King's Cup multicast, and would you look at the chaos, no pun intended, massive multi-vanguard from both Wood Elves and the Beastmen. So very fun time. Let's go ahead and take a look at the builds before the anarchy ensues. We've got Wild Riders, Sisters of Thorn, and Wild Hunters of Kurnos out here on the flank with some Way Watchers, a line of Dryads with Orion leading the way naturally, and a Branch Wraith. For the Beastmen, they have a huge army, quite a few more units. Chaos Poison Warhounds with some Centaurs right on top of those Way Watchers. That's a great pick. Some Harpies immediately eating some arrows. We've got Chaos Poison Warhounds, or sorry, yeah, regular Warhounds. Interesting. More Centaurs. Some Ungor Spearman Herd, some Ungor Raiders, Blackhorns Ravagers in the center. Kazarak leading the way, of course, and we've also got Bray Shaman Lore of Shadows. We've also got some more Centaurs and Hounds over on the far side. It looks like there are some Wild Riders in the far corner as well, so yeah, immediately these Ungol Raiders going to be opening up, and Orion and these other units going to be running in. Beautiful javelin throw there and rear charge from those Dryads. Meanwhile, over here, Wood Elves are also able to get a very good engagement with the Wild Hunters of Kurnoss, immediately shutting down those Harpies. They're going to be routed off very quickly, and the rest of the Beastmen units immediately scattering. Obviously, they have a much stronger presence over here, so going to be able to reform a little bit, but the Dryads, while they are going to get some initial very favorable situations here against like the Ungor Spearman herd, the Chariots will be able to do well. Obviously, Orion needs to focus on these Chariots if he can, as do the Way Watchers. You can see the Way Watchers getting in a position here. They are within range to fire on Khazrak, but here is a great pick by these Harpies. They're going to get on top of these Way Watchers and shut them down without them having gotten much work done at all, and you can see massive HP damage done already, so a really good pick from the Beastmen to start to get back into this battle here. You can see Melkos Mystifying Miasma on something there. Looks like maybe on those Wild Hunters. Very good target, for that. Wild Hunters able to get in here, do some anti-large damage, but they definitely don't want to be sitting in sustained combat for too long. That being said, they are keeping these guys pinned in against Orion, which of course very good. That rear charge from those Harpies, though, going to generate a ton of value. Harpies, of course, count as infantry size, so the Wild Hunters of Kurnoss will not be getting their anti-large bonus there, and some really, really good value from the Beastmen. Another rear charge from these Warhounds as well, and the Centaurs, and all of a sudden this is a bad situation for the Wood Elves. They're losing a ton of value here on those Wild Hunters. Meanwhile, infantry fight's going okay. Dryads doing well enough against Ungor Spearman herd, but honestly, Ungor Spearman herd, one of the better low-tier spear units. 30 melee defense, 25 melee attack. They'll be able to do okay against those Dryads. Meanwhile, over here, these Wild Riders just getting out-modeled here by Centaurs. There's way more Centaurs, 3 full units just about there. These Wild Riders took a little bit of a Melkos Mystifying Miasma there, but the Sisters of Thorn routed off with quite a few models left. That is pretty rough. The Harpies are going to be able to hopefully chase them off, so immediately things not looking great for the Wood Elves. I say immediately, about 2 minutes in, things not looking great for the Wood Elves, and the main reason being that the Beastmen just have way more numbers here. Orion hasn't really been able to get good tear routes going, and the tear routes that he has gotten, because the Wood Elves, again, just don't have as many units on the field, they're not able to capitalize on those and keep the units routed away. They just keep coming back and, rear charging and everything. You can see more units, like I said, coming back from route here, and just able to chase away very cost effectively with these cheap units. Nice Penumbral Pendulum there is going to break up a few of those Beastmen infantry, start to claw back into this game. And of course, Orion is still an absolute beast. Very, very tanky character. Should be able to get a lot of work done here, but those Blackhorns Ravagers are going to be a tough unit to take down. Those Dryads getting, again, just surrounded, isolated and taken down by massive Beastmen swarm. So very good stuff. These Sisters of Thorn not doing great against Harpies. Their physical resistance will help them somewhat here, and they do have pretty decent stats, but just, again, being outnumbered here is going to really hurt them. The poison and everything, they should be able to rout off those Hounds. Maybe not, but it's looking tough at this point. These Dryads getting charged by Hounds and Harpies, and there comes the Bray Shaman on his chariot riding through as well. A beautiful shot there. And Orion going to come in to try and get maybe a rear charge. He's unleashing his magics as well. A pretty nice vortex to do some damage to those Centaurs, but not enough, once again, to get a tear route. And even with the bombardment here, likely will not terrify away many of these units. I don't know. It probably will be enough to get those Hounds. Yep, looks like those Hounds do actually tear a route. But the Beastmen infantry holding strong at this point, and the rest of the Wood Elf units, besides those 2 heroes, are routed off. It's just Orion and the Bray Shaman. Or sorry, not the Bray Shaman. The Branch Wraith. Bray Shaman's around here somewhere too, no doubt. There he is on his chariot. And Khazrak is as well. Orion looks like he's trying to maybe throw spears at Khazrak. If he's able to finish him off, maybe he can start getting some mass terror routes. But with the Dryad giving up his leadership, that is going to leave Orion isolated here on the field. And predictably, he will get finished off just by weight of numbers here, picking away at him. Khazrak can maybe even get a cheeky little rear charge for the killing blow with Cloak of Isha. And it is a loss for the Wood Elves. So a very fun battle. Big thanks to both players. Chosen one, I'm not sure exactly, ODM, I'm not super familiar with this player. It might be somebody playing under a spoof name, I'm not sure. But it's pretty risky, in my opinion, to do this against the Beastmen, just because I mean, previously you could run them over with Wild Riders very effectively, but now that Ungor Spearman Herd are part of this equation, I think that Wild Riders are a little bit of a tougher pick. Granted, Peanut Butter Special as well, just going super wide with the mobile units. You can see didn't have a whole lot of infantry to begin with, but just the amount of Centaurs, Harpies, and Hounds sort of used in tandem there was absolutely brutal. And Kazrak as well, doing some pretty good lifting. 44 kills for himself, 60 for the Brave Shaman Lord of Shadows. Pretty good stuff on those chariots. 133 for Orion. 104, 112 for a couple Dryads. They did get some favorable engagements, but the chariots were a little bit rough, and again, you can see just how many more units the Beastmen brought to the table than the Wood Elves here. That was really the biggest issue in my eyes, so yeah, pretty good one. Very, very fun replay. Big thanks to both these players, so let's move on to the next one. Alright, and we're back with the Beastmen again. How about that? And taking them up against the Vampire Coast nonetheless. So, a lot of people think that Beastmen, and myself in the tier list is included in that, of course, think the Beastmen are not great against undead factions. But actually recently, and especially in the patch with some of the changes the Beastmen have got, I am very much of the opinion that the Beastmen are actually pretty decent against the Vampire Coast. Counts, I think, are the toughest, but they can handle against Vampire Coast, certainly, and to a degree Tomb Kings as well. For those of you guys who are curious, I actually did beat Turn in this matchup even before the Beastmen got some buffs in this patch. For those of you guys who want to see that game, I didn't cast it on my channel because it happened during the early access time period, but it was on the old build, so it wasn't really relevant, you know, news at the time, and the replay's old now, so I can't really cast it at this point. But fear not, it has been casted by the legend himself, Shadow Online Gaming. So I'll have a link down in the description below for those of you guys who want. I definitely recommend you go watch that game if you're interested in learning more about this matchup and why I think that it's maybe not so bad for the Beastmen. As for this build, we've got Morgur leading the way. We've got a number of Razorgore Herds, one of my favorite units for the Beastmen right now. A couple of best score, including Korok's Man Rippers. We've got some Ungor Raiders, very good stuff. Gore Herd, also super solid here. Some with shields as well, and a couple of Ungors also. For the Vampire Coast, you can see Luther Harkon. We did get a summoned Cygor, I believe, yes, and we've also got a fleet captain moving forward as well. Looks like some deck gunners, a couple of monsters, Night Terrors, Rotting Prometheans, and the Regiment of Renowned Prometheans over on the far side. Quite a few units of zombies as well. Keep in mind that zombies, the deckhand mobs, did get a pretty significant health nerf in this last patch, so they will die much more quickly. And a quick dive there by Harkon did some okay damage, but honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of the Cygor summon. I think that you can generate a lot more value from your Brave Shaman just by spamming this Vile Tide, and in this matchup as well, even using the Bray Scream is also pretty decent, but you know, Cygor Summon's able to get off a few shots here. The main reason I'm not a big fan is the timer doesn't last long enough for him to use up very much of his ammo, and I just don't find that it generates that much value if you end up missing a few of the shots. And in a matchup like this, where you tend not to face high-value infantry, you know, I would question it a little bit, but at the same time, he is able to direct hit those Rotting Prometheans there, do some good HP damage, and likewise, this is a pretty big mistake from the Vampire Coast player, even a game-losing mistake potentially, rushing in here with this fleet captain unsupported, going to take a ton of fire from those Ungor Raiders. The Beastmen, the Bestgore Herd. You can see the Razorgore Herd get in here, and this is very bad news, because once the Razorgore Herd get a full surround, just like this, the Crab is going to have an extremely hard time pulling away. But oh man, the Bloated Corpse! It was all bait for the Bloated Corpse, but will it be enough? Chaos Spawn rise up out of it, but the fleet captain actually just kills herself there on an overcast. So yeah, blew herself up on an overcast. So although I definitely like setting up that bait Bloated Corpse there, obviously costing him the caster I don't think was worth it, as that has set him behind the balance of power immediately. Did also trigger a Chaos Spawn summon, I guess, prematurely, which I guess is a little bit of an advantage, but without the caster, without that healing and zombie summons and everything, definitely think it's going to be much tougher for the Vampire Coast here, but we'll see. They do still have the crabs here, going to be saturating in the front line, and by the way, I love this map. This is one of the new quest battle maps from the last patch, and let's just quickly admire. It's got like this laser fence here and these giant floating pyramids and everything. Yes, very cool. Anyway, back to the actual battle. You can see here Ungor Raiders just pouring in sheets of fire, and this is going to do a ton of damage to those Morngul's. A beautiful Vile Tide there. Again, I really like that spell for busting up blobs of zombies. Definitely does very good area of effect damage. And the zombies here are just too slow to really make an effective flanking maneuver. And because of these little like ruins and stuff here, like these little pathways, the Vampire Coast weren't really able to get in and get into the Beastmen's back line, which is typically not a position they find themselves in. Likewise, these deck gunners haven't really done much, if anything at all. You know, it's possible that he could have sat back and tried to shoot the summoned Cygor with the deck gunners and just outlast the summon. I mean, if the Cygor pounds some zombies, is that really the end of the world? Because they are just zombies after all. But, you know, interesting choice to just go ahead and advance there. I probably would have just sat back, but Harkon is still a force to be reckoned with here. A lot of HP, a lot of terror potentially, able to terrify away a few of those Beastmen units there. Could probably come drop a big rear charge here and maybe get some good terror routes, but unfortunately it looks like he may be a little stuck here on the ground, not sure. But, ooh, beautiful Vile Tide there, taking out a ton of those supporting units. And those Razorgore Herd are actually doing some pretty decent damage to those Rotting Prometheans. Over here, the Night Terrors just starting to run out of steam a little bit. Again, that hunger will keep them alive for a little bit of time. And the Deck Gunners now starting to make their presence felt as they do take out that Bray Shaman, doing some pretty good HP damage so far. So, kind of just goes to show what could have potentially been done earlier if they had been in a position to fire. Although, looking at some of these hills, maybe they would have had a tough time actually getting line of sight there. But decent breadth attack and some shots coming in from the back will rout off some of the units here. And again, Harkon may be able to just tank this out all by himself. I certainly have seen crazier things, but the main issue is he's just running out of steam on the ground. You can see the Rotting Prometheans crumbling here, the Lamprey's Revenge crumbling in terms of their leadership, just not able to hold up and taking successive hits. These elite Beastmen units like these Goroks, Man Rippers, able to do a ton of DPS, and the Chaos Spawn as well, with their poison and everything. Beastmen Chaos Spawn, of course, do cause poison, so a very, very nice touch there. And yeah, the terror is very real, but there's nothing to keep it sustained, and you can see as soon as the units move out of that terror box, they come back from route, and that's really going to be the main issue here. There's no, like, Fellbats or, you know, Dire Pack, or I guess Dire Wolves, Scurvy Dogs, technically, here, to chase them off. And with the ground units crumbling for the coast, you can see here the Ungor Herd taking out these deck gunners. So looking good for the Beastmen, and a number of tournament wins today. I know I've seen some comments, people complaining about how Beastmen are weak. I actually think that they might be one of the strongest factions in this patch. I know I rated them bottom of my tier list in that video, but to be honest with you guys, I actually think the Beastmen are going to be very, very strong in the current patch. So, an interesting game there. Well played. I believe this is Aristodemos versus Iron Thunder here. Very well played, Iron Thunder. And Aristodemos did make a few mistakes there, but very beautiful work with that bloated corpse. Even if he did end up getting his caster killed because of it, but that still was a beautiful bloated corpse. So I definitely can appreciate that. As far as the choice to sort of move forward versus just trying to sit back and shoot the Summoned Cygor with the deck gunners, I'd be curious, Aristo, if he often comments on my videos, so if you let us know sort of what was the rationale behind that, because, I mean, from my perspective, again, the Summoned Cygor is not super accurate. You could have maybe just sat back and shot with these deck gunners, but I'm curious to see what you have to say about the subject. Harkon himself, of course, doing some very heavy lifting, 117 kills, a super strong pick in this matchup. The Beastmen just, they get terrorized by him pretty badly, so I like him quite a bit here. On the flip side, for Iron Thunder, really going wide with the Beastmen is the way to go here, from what I found, and I do like a number of these picks here. Bestigor Herd will cut up even like depth guard pretty efficiently. Of course, Korok's Man Rippers are good against like the crabs and potentially, you know, the big, or what are they called? Necrofex Colossi. Razorgore Herds, I already mentioned, I'm a big fan of, even if they didn't do a ton of work in this particular matchup. Still, just having that extra mass and presence and armor piercing, especially like with that crab, for example, even being able to just get a situation like that is very advantageous, and is certainly a reason enough to bring these Razorgore Herds. So, yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this King's Cup triple cast. I've got a couple more games from Hadriz to show you in a double cast tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.